Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Remodeler Success podcast, where we spotlight the leaders shaping the remodeling industry through experience, strategy, and consistent execution. So, today's guest has spent more than 3 decades in the remodeling world, and that's why I'm so excited. And where she was working in her way through design, sales, and operations before stepping into a leadership role at one of the most respected firms in Ohio. Yeah, we're gonna talk about so many different things today. I'm so excited. And also, in addition to all these things, she holds top certifications. It's deeply involved with NARI and also NTBA, and now oversees every department of the company that's been serving since 1970. It's that long. We are bringing the experience here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Monica Lewis. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course. Monica, could you please introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name's Monica Lewis. I am president of J.S. Browning Company, which is a design build remodeling firm in Central Ohio.
This is great. Well, Monica, we always include the lessons learned because the successful people, like pioneer people in this industry, they have lots of things to share with the community. And we love to hear this story. So I'm sure that you started as a designer and right now you're the president of one of the biggest companies in Ohio. We just wanted to learn these one of the pivotal moments in your career, that the lessons that you learned. Could you please give us a little more examples about these lessons that you learned?
Well, sure. I mean, I think anybody who's been in the remodeling business for any amount of time knows that you really have to be able to roll with the punches, right? And I think as soon as I realized that you don't need to know everything out of the gate, you just need to be open to learning, right? You just need to be able to say, okay, well, I don't know how I'm going to accomplish this, but I know that I want to. And know somebody out there can help me figure this out and that I'm willing to attempt those things. I think that was a really pivotal moment for me, to not be afraid to try something just because I don't know how I'm going to do it or how I'm going to execute it exactly. Having that little bit of bravery really goes a long way. I'm willing to try something that I might fail at. And that was a huge lesson for me.
Thanks so much. And I'm sure there are some moments that you feel big necessity maybe to adapt the client expectations because market shifts, right? I'm sure that all these decades in the industry that you saw that the market shift from maybe the trends is just really play important role just for the client when you look at the client expectations. How have you seen homeowner needs or trends evolve in the recent years? And also another follow-up question, how has your team responded to this one?
Okay. Well, whenever we talk about recent years, of course, COVID's in the conversation, right? And it upended everything for our business. We were shut down for a brief period of time. We had to evolve how we worked and how we communicated and how we dealt with clients, and just everything changed. And I think one of the most lasting impacts, besides, of course, all of the tumultuous supply chain upheaval and pricing and all of that we're still feeling reverberations from today, that work from home thing is here to stay. Like at first, it was just, we just got to get through the next few months so things get back to normal and, we'll be fine. But that work from home ability for us in terms of how we function as a company and the work from home needs of our clients really started to drive our business, because there were very few homes prior to 2020 that were designed with the idea that somebody might need a quiet place to work, or their kids might need quiet places to study away from, the normal hubbub of a family household. And so I think we're seeing that trend impact home design and definitely what we're doing in the remodeling space. And we're also seeing a big shift towards multi-generational living. Parents are moving in with their adult kids are moving in with their parents, sometimes for financial reasons, sometimes because one or more of them need care and it's better to, sort of do that as a unit. But incorporating universal design into those spaces, figuring out zoning wise, space wise, how are we going to incorporate basically a full secondary household in this structure on this property, has been challenging but fun. Those are fun projects to take on, and you're changing how that family's going to live and their togetherness and how they're going to function. So those are rewarding projects as well.
Well, I was also reading an article about like generational living, and I saw some of the European countries, especially places like in Italy, and some of the places I believe in Serbia or Luxembourg. I don't know, but they are like the young adults till the age of 35. They're still living their families. So it's never like here in the US. So, of course, there will be some shifts. Some countries or some cultures may see it quite normal, but here in the US, we don't have that much, but it's seeing that it's shifted a little bit. It's really interesting to see, something to note down and just to mention that in this show. And thanks so much for this information that you shared with us. Thanks so much for this. And like, when you look at your background, you have several different things on your background, not only design, but also sales and operations. I'm sure that you have some habits or a mindset that will help you to bring people together and keep projects moving forward. Could you please talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, I feel like we hold our team together really well, and I've certainly worked for companies where that wasn't the case, particularly in the design build, sphere. You've got people who are primarily in the office, right? They're designing, they're estimating, they're drawing, they're selling, and they're not in the field as much. And then you've got the team that's in the field predominantly, and they're hardly in the office. And I've worked at companies where that relationship was really contentious. And it always bothered me because, I can kind of understand it when the architect worked for a different company and then there's a contractor that's got no affiliation. And I could see the finger pointing maybe a little more readily there. I can understand how that could happen, but we're on the same team. Like I've never understood that mentality. I've always felt like the people that were out in the field doing this really hard work to bring the project I designed and sold to life are, are doing, a great job. They're doing tremendous things out there, and in a lot of cases, saving my bacon, right? Maybe I made a mistake out of ignorance. I didn't know that this was gonna be a problem, and they figure out a way to work around it and make things happen. So, I think I came to the company with that sort of mindset that the people in the field are my partners, that we're not on opposite sides of the fence. We're both trying to get something accomplished for the client, and I really try to uh, demonstrate that, live that for the rest of my team, and I feel like they all feel that way too. They know that, "Hey, we're working together, we're trying to get this done." And since I'd been with the company a really long time before I got into the leadership role, I think I was lucky enough to build up a little street cred. They knew who I was as a designer, they knew who I was as a salesperson, and then, design and sales manager. They knew how I functioned and who I was as a person and in my heart. And so I think that helped a little bit moving into the leadership role that they knew who they were dealing with.
And I'm sure it's a big part of it also creating a company culture. Is that correct?
Oh, sure. Sure. It's it's one of the things I like the least, and I tend to talk about it when we have our new team orientation meetings with when people come on board. They meet with all of us, all of the department heads and me and the founder, Jeff Brown. And one of the things I talk about is like, I don't want to hear a designer or a salesperson saying, that stupid carpenter didn't read my plans right. And I don't want to hear a carpenter saying that designer didn't know what she was talking about and she drew this thing and I can't build it this way. It's all about we as a team. We had a communication issue. We're going to fix it. And we're going to be delayed a couple of days while we rework something, but you're going to have a great project and it's going to be fine. We're a team and we sink and we're swim together. So yeah, I think that permeates our culture.
That's great. I think all our listeners today watching this part of this great interview, they understand is creating culture is a really big thing. If you're just starting folks from scratch, well, this culture is not going to be built overnight, but you definitely need to understand your people. And also, you have to reflect your personalities into your company because this is your company. Of course, your personality will bring company up to a certain level. And then maybe you have to look at that more professionally with the bigger picture and let things happen, let the automations happen, and also even the hiring, maybe not only operations, but the financial part, the sales and marketing should also align together. So that's why it's very important, just like Monica said, it's very important to create that company culture here. That's one of the main things that you have to look at when you're growing your business. So thank you so much for this one, Monica. I'm sure that is really the big golden nugget for our listeners today as well. Well, also, I just wanted to bring the conversation to the sales and operations actually, because I would like to ask you the client experience
Mhm.
from start to finish. What are some checkpoints or practices that you really believe it's really bringing you more value for your all sales and operational processes?
Well, We've got a design build model, as I said, and we're, dare I say, fanatical about getting as many of our ducks in a row as we can before we go to contract. I've certainly worked for companies and I worked under people who felt like fast, fast, fast. Get it sold, get their signature, get their money, get their commitments. We'll figure out the details later. Like, we'll worry about that later. And we feel completely the opposite. It is so important to everybody on our team that we dot as many I's and cross as many T's as we can before we ever get to the contract stage. Now, does that slow down our sales process? Yes. Are there times where I wished I'd had that money in my cash flow 2 months ago? Sure, there is. But my chief accounting guy, my accounting manager, has this expression called slow in and fast out. And it's a racing term. Like, when you go into a corner, right? You're driving the car and you go into a corner, you go in slow so that you can speed up on the way out. And that's the approach we take. We're going to spend all the time we need to explore the structural, the engineering, the mechanical, the design elements, the materials of what the client wants. The more time I take, the more accurate that number is for the client. So when they commit to me, and maybe that project is a little over the budget they wanted to spend, but I can tell them everything you loved, everything you picked out is in here. And the plumber's seen it, the electrician's seen it, my engineer's seen it. We have a really good sense of what we think is behind these walls and over the ceiling, below the floor. We have a very low risk of unwanted change orders that you didn't ask for. Our yearly average is around 6 to 7%. And that includes things that homeowners chose to add. So we do really well. And there's fewer surprises for the client, which I think makes the experience much better for them. Because maybe that initial number was a little higher, but at least they knew going in, rather than going in at 150. And then at the end of the day, it was really 200, 225, 250. And then they're stuck because the job's midway and they're getting hit with all these change orders. We just really want to do all we can to get everything lined up and have good expectations for the client.
You just remind me one of the conversations we had in this channel, one of the episodes. Guest speaker said, I was asking about hiring, and he said, hire slow, fire fast. And he said, it might sound so violent, Dennis, but this is the thing that you have to look at. Hire slow, fire fast. And when you look at the way that you look at your operations, actually just reminded me that, being slow in the beginning and then going fast at the end, I believe it's one of the best approaches. And you know what? Speaking of which, since we are talking about like in slow and fast at the same time, my next question is really related to this one because I want to ask you because our sales always, like, of course, we have some good marketing, we have some referrals. We'll talk about marketing today, but sometimes we have some roller coaster rides, ins and outs, and sometimes we have slower seasons or sometimes long lead times, right? And we have to manage those times because our team requires work and our business needs this movement to keep the business healthy, at least, right? Keep it healthy. So, how do you manage those times when the pipeline is little, it's really kind of really well, but you still need some work, or maybe sometimes you have a lot more leads that you can handle, right? That's slow and fast times. How would you just really calibrate your approach to these kind of good and bad problems?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely, I've been in this business, as you said, over 30 years, and it's always been that way. It's feast or famine. You're rocketing up, and then it's like slower. And luckily, I feel like remodeling is not quite so severe as new construction, and that Columbus, Ohio, is slightly more insulated than some other parts of the country. But we do have that, and you do have times where your company and you're talking with with my chief accounting officer, and she's like, like during COVID, she's like, "Oh, the invoices, everything's coming in, everything's going out, and we got, just all this demand, and we can't process jobs fast enough. We can't answer the phone fast enough. I can't get this done because we're answering the phone for new people." And then you have times where she's like, we're just barely gonna make this without dipping into our reserves, and it's having people around you that you trust that can expand and are willing to maybe put a little more effort in when it's busier, so that when it's slower, you're leaner, right? And we do hire slow. We wait until we have consistent backlog that we feel like we can't burn these folks out in the field. We've got to have, reasonable lives for them. But at the same time, that first blip, we're not going to hire 3 new people, right? We don't want to let people go. So we survive those low times by being conservative during the busy times. We take good stewardship with our money. We're very precise with our cash flow. So part of that prep for getting a job ready to sell is figuring out the cash flow of that job and setting up our payments accordingly. I worked at companies where they're like, I'll just split it up or take half up front and half when you're done. We look at each phase and we make sure that our accounting office is getting money every month to pay bills with and that they're getting enough money to pay the bills for that job. So every job's financing itself as it goes. That helps us keep going in the slower times. And honestly, when it's not uh, so overwhelmingly busy like it was during COVID, now that it's slowing down a little bit, it gives people a little bit of a chance to breathe. It's time to sharpen the saw. If you wanted to get that certification, if you wanted to, try something new, if you wanted to learn a new skill. Heck, for us, we even had a clean out day in the office a month or so ago. It was fun. Like, we're getting rid of files that are like 5, 6 years old. We're cleaning out old samples. We all came in our jeans and casual clothes and had a clean out day. I mean, you don't have time to do that when you're so busy. So that ebb and flow, I've kind of gotten used to it. And you just always know when it's slow, this is going to end. And I'm going to be so busy, I won't know what to do with myself. And when I'm busy and I'm like, how are we going to do all this? I remember, in the future, it's going to slow down again. You're going to wish you had this business. So just write it out.
Amazing. That's great. Thanks so much for sharing this. I'm sure our listeners are really enjoying this conversation today. And thanks so much for this information. Very interesting. You see, folks, this is what happens when you bring world class people to this show. We get world class information and insights. That's it. So that's amazing. Thanks so much. Well, I would like to bring conversation to the marketing, and especially could be online and offline marketing, because when you look at companies with multi-million dollars, they do have a mix of different marketing strategies. Could be the website, could be either outside of the digital world. Maybe they are going through radio or TV ads or those kind of different things. That is a traditional marketing. So how do you approach your marketing as the company?
Yeah. Wow, that's a never ending struggle. I tell you what, balancing it, like you said, among all the different mechanisms you have available to you today to try to reach your potential client, and the different expenses of each, whether or not you can really track the success of this one versus that one. It's a constant readjustment. I mean, I'll be frank. We're looking at it at every marketing meeting, which is once a month at least, and saying what's the performance, what's succeeding, how are we doing. And currently, we're doing a big refill, I guess you'd call it, on our website. We updated our branding, and so we had to do that, and we wanted to freshen it up and do the content. And so there's a certain amount of the budget that's going to that, and then we're getting our feed into Google spend and social media and all of that. And currently, I'm doing all of the social media myself because I want my marketing team doing the stuff I'm less skilled at, like building a website, like Google spend, all of that sort of thing. So
When you say Google spend, you're talking about Google Ads spend, right? For the
Google
for
Ad
advertising.
spend.
Yeah. Mhm.
We do some in-person events. In fact, we're going to have one tonight. Our local NARI chapter will do shows, home tours. But tonight we're having our company only. We're hosting a wine and design at one of our projects, and so people from the neighborhood will get to come through and tour it. It's kind of our thank you to the clients and to the neighborhood for putting up with us while we are doing construction, and we bring in food and wine and just have a really nice time. And it's not salesy. It's really just about relationship building and letting people see our work. Um, our our strongest lead source is still repeat and referral. It's like 70% of my sold jobs. And then following that is site signs and vehicle signs. So the remaining like 15%, 20% of my sales, I'm paying a fortune for. with print and social and the website and everything else.
Acquisition is higher, right? Just to capture that people. I think one of the main reason over there is because they don't know you that much, because it's really easy to sell your repeat or referrals, right? Because they come with a really strong evidence in their hands. These people are good. They're good for me. But I think that's why you're paying fortune for the other people, just because they don't know your company that much. Maybe they don't really engage with your content. Could be the main contributing reason.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think there's that fear factor with remodeling, right? There's a huge leap of faith that a client takes when they jump. You're going to catch them, right? You're going to give them this beautiful project to make their home better. They they know it's going to cost them a lot of money. They know it's going to take time. They know that you're going to tear into the biggest investment they probably have. That's a huge amount of trust. And so I do think it's reasonable that if they don't know you already, that you've got to hit them multiple times from lots of different directions and different media outlets before they feel comfortable calling and getting that process going.
I also learned one of the National Kitchen and Bath Association, it was a press release, I believe. 10%, it means 1 out of 10, every 1 out of 10 prospects really cancel their projects just because the pricing is way higher than they expected.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear, because when I see the results and everything, you do most of the thing, even could be for your referrals too, because they believe that you're there to deliver. But at the end of the day, if it's not in their budget, no one has an unlimited budget, of course. I believe that one thing. But when it comes to bank accounts transfer, that's really giving people a little bit of hard time. That's what I read, and I was so surprised to see it's 10%. I would expect this number to be a little bit less. It just really is 1 out of every 10. So it's interesting. That was a really interesting fact. And thanks so much for sharing all this. I always ask this one: do you use AI? Do you really just to support your team to use AI more and more?
I have been using it more and more. I really have. I was hesitant at first. Like I dabbled in it and then I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is really helping. And I took a couple classes. I watched a master class and I did a couple other things. And it one of them, I can't remember which, um, the gentleman presenting said, if you're a little nervous about AI, you're the person who needs to use it. Because how AI is gonna develop and how it's gonna be used and how it's going to be broadcast and changed and evolved is going to be controlled by the people who are using it. So if you're worried about it being used in a bad way, you need to get in there right now and start using it and understand what it's about and how it functions. And I do find that it can really save me time on some things. And like most things in life, if you invest some time up front, it saves you time in the back end. And I took the time to go back and call my old presentations on my old blogs, my old training sessions that I had done for our team, and I uploaded everything. And we set up a set of parameters and a closed, teaching thing for us. And my AI knows my voice now. Like it knows how I speak and how I like to operate and how I want to present. And I feel like it's getting closer and closer to me when I say, hey, these are the things I want to talk about. And here's my bullet points that I want to cover. I want to start working on a rough draft. And when it gives me that first outline, I'm tweaking it less and less and less as I go. Like it's starting to figure me out, which is great and also a little bit scary. So yeah, I think I'm probably using it more than most people in the company, but other people have been dabbling in. I just had one of my colleagues the other day show me a prompt that she was using that was helping do a synopsis for a really large text. And I'm like, thanks. That's awesome. I appreciate your help.
That's a great ninja hack, by the way.
Yeah.
When I was exhibiting in Lambat Industry Show, they do shows in IBS and KBS together every year in February. That was in Las Vegas last year in 2025. It's going to be in Orlando this year. And I was talking to different people, and one of the visitors to our booth and asked some questions about, like, give me a ninja hack for AI. And I said, all right, here's a ninja hack for you. Take your phone with you when you're giving a visit to your client. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And then when they're talking about what they want, just record it. And and then take that recording, turn it to a transcription. There are some tools like $10 per month. You take the full transcription, understand their pain points, and structure your pricing on their pain points, not what you can deliver. He said, "Oh my God, please, thank you so much." And I was offering one of my books. He just said, "Is it in this book?" Yeah, take it and go. So it was for it comes
It's a
in
great
kind of,
one. Yeah.
yeah. And also, just like you said, AI is going to give us a lot more capabilities in the future. Sometimes it sounds so scary, but I think we're gonna handle it really well in the upcoming decades. We'll see how it's all.
An industry, you know, that that needs it more, right, than remodeling. You know, the number of things we have to keep track of, the wide variety of skill sets a business owner needs to have in this industry. You know, any hack you can get that's going to lighten your load and help you automate something and still have it personalized, still have it read as you, and take a little bit off your plate so you can live a better life. I mean, I think this industry deserves it. Industry
Exactly.
deserves some help.
That's right. That's right. Well, that was an amazing ninja hacks. It was really helpful, I'm sure, for our listeners still. And folks, we're gonna wrap up pretty soon, but I have one last question because we always ask this question to our guests because I would like to learn one insight that you wish remodelers can understood early in their careers. For someone who's trying to really build, maybe they're starting from scratch. What is that one insight?
You've got to learn how to communicate well. You know, communication is your first job. Your first job isn't swinging a hammer. Your first job isn't designing that thing. Your first job is communication. You've got to communicate what's in your head to everybody else and let them know your expectations, let them know where you stand. If you don't get that nailed down when you're small, and you're having to deal with still a lot of people, right? You probably still got some trades, you've got your clients, maybe you have an outsourced accountant or whatever. You know, you still have this little um nest of people that you've got to communicate with. And you've got to button down those processes as quick as you can. Because I tell my team this all the time, there is no problem that we face that couldn't have been either avoided entirely or made less severe, handled faster, with better communication. And that has to be top of mind every day. Okay, this is going to happen. Who needs to know that? Who do I need to tell? How do I need to tell them? And how is it being received? Am I sure they're understanding what I'm transmitting? Communication for sure. Everybody thinks it's, oh, I gotta design better. I've gotta sell better. You know, gotta put up more framing. You need to be able to communicate before any of that's gonna happen. And so I think that's the tool that we could all always get better at.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, one last thing, because just because you're in there, Monica, I don't want to let you go. Come on. It's right. But I have questions, eight questions. Just because you mentioned situations like you are in Neri, right?
Yes.
Why should we go to these chapters meetings? I'm sure there are a lot more value over there, right? Someone like you're just starting, what do you think is very powerful or is beneficial?
I love my organizations. I love NKBA. I love NARI. Those are the two I participate in the most. And I'll tell you what, NARI, when I became vice president of JS Brown and Company, Jeff created that role for me because prior to that, I'd just been a manager. I'd never been in leadership. I'd never aspired to leadership. I hadn't taken business courses or done all of those things. But I had a very intimate knowledge of the company. You know, at that point, I'd been here like 18, 19 years. And he said, I want you to take a leadership role. And so we created the VP role, and that's what I took on. And right after that, I saw an ad for the NARI Build a Better Business course and NARI accreditation. And that course and that process of getting our NARI accreditation changed my confidence from 3 or 4 to like a 9. I couldn't have done it without that network of people to turn to. and give me guidelines and say, hey, look, good remodeling companies do this with their accounting. They do this with their marketing. They do this with production. And I could go through the list and say, oh, we already do that. We already do that. Oh, we don't do this. That's a good idea. And I could just really wrap my arms around this company that I already loved, but only knew from a certain couple of angles, right? And
Right.
it just immersed me in the stuff that I wasn't as confident in the beginning. And yeah, these organizations aren't just letters that you put after your name, even though I do have a lot of them.
Mhm.
It's not the value. The value is in the education. The value is in the network of people that you could call up anytime and say, what do you do when this happens? I can't be the only one that this happens to. What are you doing about it when you encounter it? It's it's invaluable. It makes you feel like you're not alone, and you've got people to help you.
Wow, Monica, that was an amazing session. Thank you so much for all the information that you shared, all your experience and everything. And I'm sure now, folks, you see that I told you right in the middle of the session, when you bring pioneer people to our show, they share world class insights and they share their world class information. Just because the things that you are maybe thinking it's right or wrong, that's been already been questioned for other people already. So you just go there and just share that problem with the same people. That's why even these broadcasts and
Yeah.
this is gonna help you if you're just planning to travel from A to B. Just plug it in and just tune into Remodeler Success podcast. You will be learning people like Monica. Monica, thank you so much one more time. And
Absolutely.
well, if someone has some sort of like a question, because here we share so many great things there, and sometimes we receive some questions. Is that the best way to go to the website, or should they just find you on LinkedIn or Instagram, or what's the best way?
Yep, I'm on I feel like I'm on everything. But definitely, yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Monica Lewis with JS Brown and Company. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, um, house.com, Pinterest. Our website is jsbrowncompany.com. Our handle on all the socials and things is JS Brown Co. So we should be pretty easy to find. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to talk to anybody out in the field.
Thank you so much, folks. That was the another episode of the Remodeler Success podcast. We're gonna see you next time. Goodbye.